Maybe she's looking for a little bit of what we gave her sister, huh?
Maybe she's looking for a whole lot more of what we gave her sister. How about it, Brenda? The both of us at once, baby. You're gonna love it.
Hey.
What is it?
Wait a minute, man. I don't like it. Something's weird.
What's the matter, boys? You get a little girl all hot and horny, then lose your nerve? What a shame.
Savage Streets is an infamous piece of exploitation schlock from director Danny Steinmann, director of what I think we can all agree is the sleaziest of the Friday the 13th films. It should come as no surprise then that Steinmann brings his special brand of workmanlike direction and predilection for gratuitous breast shots and violence to his teen gang drama. Talking about this film means talking about a brutal rape scene, so feel free to find one of the, 3 other videos on this channel that doesn't feature a movie about rape. Yeah, Hollywood may have had some issues in the 1980s. The Exorcist Linda Blair plays Brenda, the outspoken leader of a group of street-smart high school girls, the Satins, who like to roam the streets at night, having fun and getting into light mischief like theft and vandalism. When we meet them in the opening shot, they're walking down the streets of Los Angeles, accompanied by the badass John Farnham rock anthem, "Nothing's Gonna Stand in Our Way," which would become significantly less badass 2 years later, when it was covered by Spectre General for the Transformers the Movie soundtrack. Okay, actually, that song is still pretty badass. I just can't hear it without thinking of Hot Rod and Cup being stranded underwater. Brenda is accompanied by her deaf-mute sister, Heather, played by a very young Linnea Quigley, and a host of others who don't get much in the way of characterization. They're just sort of there for her to have a gang of women around her. I will note that one of the friends is pregnant and getting married. That's Francine, played by the nurse from Friday the 13th Part 4. Brenda is very protective of Heather, scolding the other girls for offering her liquor and cursing out the evil drug-dealing boy gang, the Scars, for nearly running her over in their car. Jake, the leader of said evil drug-dealing boy gang, played by ultra-sleazy Robert Dreyer, tries to hit on Brenda to smooth things over and gets brutally rebuffed. The girls decide, as a measure of taking the boys down a peg, that they will steal their car and go for a joyride, leaving it trashed in the alleyway. This enrages Jake and he vows revenge. The next day, Jake and the Scars are harassing Vince, one of their inside dealers, at the local high school where they run afoul of the principal, John Vernon. Vernon is only in the film briefly, but he does drop the best line of the film.
He's got the clap. He's burning up. Go fuck an iceberg.
Brenda gets in a fight with Cindy, who seems to be occupying the prom queen role, although it's really hard to tell. The fight is ostensibly over Cindy's boyfriend, Wes, played by Barf from Midnight Madness, but it's really just Steinmann wanting a girl fight in the shower. Yeah, I can't believe he didn't work a shower scene into Friday the 13th. Brenda is so occupied with Cindy that she leaves Heather alone in the gym, where Jake and the gang find her and rape her. This is a particularly brutal scene, especially since Heather has been shown to be so kind and trusting and vulnerable, and because Quigley is so tiny. Not surprisingly, Danny Steinmann goes full sleaze on this, directly copying one of the rape scenes from I Spit on Your Grave, with the other guys forcing Vince to rape her first. Heather winds up in a coma, but since there are no witnesses, there are no suspects. The Satins go on about their business, with everyone planning for Francine's shotgun wedding. At what I assume is supposed to be her bachelorette party in a scuzzy nightclub, the Scars pick a fight that turns into an all-out brawl. In all the chaos, Francine cuts Jake's face to get away from him, drawing even more anger. At school, the girls spend their time jawing with their wildly permissive poetry teacher and drawing dicks on the anatomy lessons. Brenda gets in another fight with Cindy, even though Brenda has no interest in Wes. Gosh, I have no idea why. Francine tries on her dress, which admittedly looks amazing, but when she makes the ill-fated decision to walk home, in broad daylight, the gang of boys tracks her down for more harassment.
Come on!
Jake has crueler intentions, though, than just harassment, as he picks her up and tosses her off the bridge to her death. Vince is so freaked out that he curses Jake and runs to the hospital to apologize to a comatose Heather. His soliloquy is genuinely affecting and well acted, but you know what you don't get a mulligan on? Gang rape. Brenda shows up at the same time and overhears him confess, and she beats on him until he scurries off, but by then it's too late. Brenda knows who did it, and she's hell-bent on revenge. We get some more John Farnham rock anthem with Justice for One, and this is a place where a normal director would place a training montage where the Satins prepare to go to war for their fallen friend. But this is Danny Steinmann, so we get a lingering shot of Linda Blair naked in a tub staring at the wall. This is followed by her getting dressed up in a skin-tight spandex outfit with significant cleavage, although not nearly as much cleavage as Arrow Video seems to remember. You can almost see vagina in that cover. Vagina adjacent. Like West Vagina. She taunts Red and Fargo while openly wearing a quiver full of arrows, but don't worry, Fargo has a master plan.
I'm gonna fuck that bitch.
Ah yes, the Budapest Gambit. Ingenious move if your opponent is aggressive with their rook. Brenda teases Fargo into chasing her down in between choice rape threats. God, Fargo is just really the worst. He catches an arrow to the neck, though, and Brenda gets her Schwarzenegger line.
Too bad you're not double jointed.
Why?
Because if you were, you'd be able to bend over and kiss your ass goodbye.
Red tracks them down and then stumbles into a bear trap to finish him off. Ha! Suck it, Oingo Boingo. That just leaves Brenda and Jake for a one-on-one duel to the death. The fight is a bit more fair as Jake is not a complete moron, but Brenda of course prevails, avenging the rape of her sister and the death of her best friend. This movie it's a lot. Danny Steinmann is in top form as a director here, heaping piles of sleaze onto the viewer's plate like a perverted grandmother at Thanksgiving. It's easy to see why Paramount wanted him for a Friday the 13th film. He doesn't shy away from the sex or violence, and he has a queerly apt way of getting relationships across in a minimalistic way. Brenda and the Satins really do seem to like and care about one another, but I do wish we would have gotten a little bit more time with them individually because the little snippets we do get make them seem like they'd be really interesting on their own. Linda Blair is entertaining and charismatic even if she does turn into a quip machine in the final act of the film.
Now it's your turn with the pussy.
You'd think given all the build she'd be a little bit more filled with rage, given what these guys have done to her, but it's just an element of the genre I guess you have to live with. If you only know her as the little girl from The Exorcist, you'd probably think that this is playing against type, but if you know her from basically anything else she did in the 1980s, you know that this is exactly her type. The other girls are fine, but like I said, they don't have a lot to work with. Lisa Freeman only appeared in a handful of roles, her most notable one being the ill-fated nurse in Friday the 13th Part 4. Everything else she did was either a bit role or a walk-on-TV part. And that's too bad because even in thankless roles like the Friday film and smaller parts like this one, she has a charismatic on-screen presence. Linnea Quigley doesn't add too much. She's really only in the film for about 10 minutes before she gets written out via coma. Her only job is to be mousy and wayfish, and she certainly does that. Like I said earlier, her rape at the hands of the Scars is brutal and Quigley sells it as such. This is a far cry from her Scream Queen roles, that tend to be a little edgier. It's odd to think that she'd already had a decade of acting under her belt at this point. Louisa Leshin, who plays Maria, would bounce around several TV roles before becoming a wildly successful producer on hits like The George Lopez Show, Everybody Hates Chris, and Austin and Ally. Deborah Blee, who is barely recognizable in this film, would probably be better known to USA Up All Night fans than the general public. She appeared in a number of lowbrow teen films, most notably Malibu Bikini Shop. Robert Dreyer plays the main heavy, and this is a role he gets typecast as in both TV and film. Sal Landy actually chews a lot more scenery as his sadistic and vaguely homoerotic second-in-command Fargo. Fargo's open vest and neckerchief look was, it was really something, even for 1984. And he comes off as Danny Steinmann's own id.
Fuck no, baby, I ain't done.
Johnny Veneker plays Vince, the one member of the Scars with a conscience, albeit too late to do anything about it. He's still going strong in small TV and film roles. Despite the selection of videos on this playlist, I'm actually not a big fan of sleaze and exploitation, especially not rape revenge narratives. And yet, I found myself being charmed by this movie. I'm not sure whether it was the likable actors, or the soundtrack, or the attitude, or a combination of all three, but I wound up enjoying myself. All in all, if you're a fan of exploitation and revenge action flicks, this is probably a good pickup. You do have to watch it with your tongue firmly planted in your cheek, though, because Steinmann isn't afraid to let his lascivious instincts hang out, even if it does mean a gratuitous naked shower fight here or there. For those wanting something distinctly 80s with a great soundtrack and some magnetic, good-looking performers, this is definitely worth a pickup. Next up, Linda Blair gets lost somewhere south of the border.